Welcome to this episode of the This Is Believeland Real Browns Fans podcast. I am your host, James Mastrucci from This Is Believeland. I am joined by my co-host, Jordan Cohen from Real Browns Fans. And this is the first episode of the joint podcast between our two sites. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I am doing really good. I'm really looking forward to kind of like the first official joint podcast. It's going to be awesome.
And we have a special guest in this first episode of this podcast. From Windy City Gridiron and the Draft Wire, we have Jacob Infante. Jacob, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty well. I just got back earlier today. I spent the day up with family in Wisconsin, and I just got back, so I'm all sunburnt and all that. So I'm just trying to enjoy this 4th of July weekend and all that. But I'm doing pretty well.
Well, it sounds like you had a better day than I did, because I got to get a new hot water heater in my house. So,
yeah.
Well, I guess my only question, Jacob, is the Wisconsin family, are they Packers fans or Bears fans?
Oh, well, so I went with my my mom and my brother. So we're all Bears fans, but I do have family up there in Wisconsin, and they're actually Packers fans, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So it's things get a little dicey when football season comes around, but still love them all the same. Just a little bit of an awkward situation whenever the Bears go on and take on the Packers.
And things might be changing for the Bears way coming up soon. There could be a little bit of change going on with the Packers, but I guess we can get into that a little bit later. But we have changes with the Bears this season. Starting off, Mitch Trubisky, that era's gone. They add in Justin Fields, and they signed Andy Dalton. So what do you make of all that as someone who covers the Bears?
Yeah, so I've been on record as saying that I've been pretty strict on Ryan Pace in recent years, especially like from a free agency perspective. Mm-hmm. And Matt Nagy, I've admittedly been a little harsh on him, but I do think that he's a solid enough coach, and there's potential for him to work with if he gets the right pieces in his offense. But I think that the selection of Justin Fields just bought both of them a decent amount of time and give them a little bit more leeway in their job security, because honestly I was pulling for just starting over this year. And I think that their late little push to get into the playoffs, I think that kind of had the Bears, like the higher-ups, the McCaskies and Ted Phillips, their president, to say, okay, well, we made it to the playoffs. We see how, the offense played poorly, and we still made it to the playoffs. Maybe if we move some things around, we can, build upon that. And I really wasn't a fan of what the Bears did in free agency. I think that releasing Kyle Fuller, I get that financially it was a move that helped them out, but they had a lot of other moves they could have made. They paid, a decent amount of money to Jermaine Ifedi, and sure, it's a one-year deal, but I still wasn't a huge fan of that. And, eventually cutting Charles Leno Jr., like there were moves they needed to make to free up money. I just don't think that those were the moves that needed to be made. And then Andy Dalton, I think, is an upgrade over Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles, but I have never honestly been a huge fan of paying a significant amount of money to mediocre quarterbacks, and especially considering what Andy Dalton's proven the last couple of years. Like he's near the tail end of his career, let's be honest, and I don't think there's not much that he hasn't shown. Like he is what he is at this point. So I wasn't a big fan of that move. I came to appreciate it a little bit more in time, but in the moment I wasn't very happy with it. But the draft is where things change, and I've been a big fan of Ryan Pace, as a drafter. Free agency, he's been extremely hit or miss, but the draft, I take Ryan Pace against most general managers in the NFL. Not all of them, but I take him up against most. And Justin Fields trading up for him, I think, was a fantastic move, and they didn't even have to move an incredible amount of draft capital to get him. Sure, they gave up a future first, but they kept their second and third round picks. Eventually they dealt the third to move up in the second round. But, besides the point, they didn't give up as much as I was expecting they would have had to in a hypothetical Justin Fields trade. And then moving up for Tevin Jenkins was another move I really liked. I was super high on Jenkins coming out. I wanted him if the Bears stayed put at 20, and he fell all the way to 39. So I was ecstatic with that pick. And I like what they did in the later rounds. I think they have some potential special teams contributors, good depth pieces, maybe a guy or two who can end up starting out of those 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks. So overall, I say it was a decent offseason for the Bears in the short term, but in the long term, I think it was really helpful simply because I think that getting Justin Fields and finally making a significant investment in offensive tackle, I think that was very not Bears-like of them, if that makes sense. But yeah, I was definitely pleased with the draft. Free agency, I have some umbrage with from time to time, but I love their draft for sure.
So is Jenkins going to start? Like, I know last year we saw all of these rookie offensive linemen. The Browns had one, but like there was all over the league. These rookie tackles were starting and like generally played pretty well. Is the plan Jenkins is going to start?
Yeah, they'll be starting Tevin Jenkins week 1. I'm pretty sure of it. And I'm pretty sure that what their plan is, they're going to start him at left tackle right away. Because they cut Charles Leno Jr. and freed up significant cap to be able to sign their rookies, and they have a little bit of cap space where they can probably sign one more guy, like a short deal if they wanted to. But they've got Jenkins now, and I think that he's going to be the guy that they're going to slide in at left tackle, even though he played mostly right tackle at Oklahoma State. I think that's where they view him, and that's part of why they moved up for him, because they view him so highly. So that's my guess, and then probably Jermaine Ifedi at right tackle. But I can see Tevin Jenkins starting right away at left tackle just because I don't necessarily see too much competition for him. I mean, you don't have too many other guys on the roster who have starting offensive tackle experience outside of like Elijah Wilkinson, who's, more suited as a swing tackle at this stage of his career.
Yeah, it feels like you guys are trying to do this thing where, and I'm higher on it because of Justin Fields than I usually am when teams try to do this, where it's like you were given an opportunity because of Fields to not have to rebuild, but kind of more retool. And it feels like you guys actually may be able to strike that middle ground really well, especially if that Aaron Rodgers guy leaves the division, right? Because then, it feels like the path, even with Andy Dalton, even if Fields doesn't play the whole year, your team is just as good as any other team in this division, if not better. I think.
Yeah, I think that there's, from a pure overall roster perspective, outside of quarterback, obviously, because Aaron Rodgers is, far and away the best of the bunch. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, there's a really debate otherwise at that point. But roster-wise, I think the Bears are pretty close to the Packers. I will give the Packers the slight edge because I feel like they've got, a couple superstars at key positions. Like, Jair Alexander's a stud at corner. David Bakhtiari might be the best tackle in the league. So, and a couple other guys as well on both sides of the ball. Devontae Adams, obviously a superstar, and they've got some, good pass rushers too. So I give the Packers a slight edge, but I do think the Bears have a good roster that's ready to win now. And I feel like I've been saying that for the past 3-4 years now. They have a roster that's ready to win now, and they haven't been losing a ton. I'll give them that. They haven't been bad any of these past couple of years, but they haven't necessarily been great outside of 2018. So now it's just a matter of, can their quarterback play improve enough where they don't need an outlier season where they put up insane turnover production like they did in 2018 to kind of mask the offensive deficiencies that they had, because that's not the production you can consistently put up year after year. So if you can get some improvement on offense and just, quality play on defense, because it's an above average defensive unit, if they can get, even decent quarterback play and, continue that above average, at least defensive play that they've been having the past couple of years, I think there's a chance this team makes the playoffs again. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, a lot of moving pieces and it's a tough schedule. There's potential if the quarterback play is good enough. And I have some concerns on the roster, but I think that there's still a lot to like for sure.
There are a lot of definitely interesting pieces on the Bears, and because of their quarterback play the last couple of years, they've essentially been treading water. They haven't been necessarily good enough to be, you know, compete for a title, but not bad enough to actually get a high enough draft pick. And, you know, with their approach to the quarterback position, they brought in Andy Dalton, but we all know he has some deficiencies in his skill set. But he is someone who can do just enough if the right pieces are around him. Do the Bears have that?
I feel like, yeah, there are pieces in place, and like I like some of what the Bears have going forward right now, and I think that comparing where Justin Fields is at right now with, you know, the wide receivers, the offensive line, the coaching staff, and just the pieces that are around him, I think that Fields is in a better place than Trubisky would have been.
Okay.
Just because I feel like, you know, Allen Robinson is miles ahead of any receivers that the Bears had in 2017. Darnold,
dude, he is so good. Like, he is so good. James and I had this conversation 2 weeks ago. Like, he made, like, to me, he is easily in the top 10 receivers. Maybe top. He is so good. Sorry, I
no. Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely think he's top 10, and if he's not top 5, he's really close. He's a very talented wide receiver, and I feel like he doesn't get the credit that he deserves simply because of the quarterback situation around him. So that's why I'm hopeful as a fan, you know, not just as a writer who's, you know, covering this team and wants them to succeed so I can, you know, write more and, you know, all that fun stuff and get more views. But I think that Justin Fields now is in a much better position than Trubisky was. And another thing I really like is the offensive minds that the Bears have on their coaching staff. You know, Matt Nagy has experience as offensive coordinator, as a quarterback's coach, as playing as a quarterback in the AFL. Bill Lazor's been around for a while as an offensive coordinator, offensive analyst, quarterback's coach, all that fun stuff. John DeFilippo, who got promoted to their passing game coordinator and their QB coach, obviously was the QB coach for Philly when they won the Super Bowl, and he's, you know, had a couple offensive coordinator roles here and there. Tom Herman, the former coach for the Texas Longhorns, he's now an offensive analyst. So they've got some really QB-minded guys in that coaching staff who can work with Justin Fields, and that's not even mentioning the fact that you have two veterans in Andy Dalton and Nick Foles who have been to the playoffs, who have made it to a Pro Bowl. And in, you know, Dalton's case, he was a long-term starter in Cincinnati, and in Foles' case, he was able to lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl, stepping in, you know, late in the season there. So guys who know what it takes to win and know what it takes to be able to propel younger guys around them. So I think that Justin Fields might be in as favorable of a position as a quarterback can get. Out in terms of those rookies, I'd say maybe Trey Lance is in a better position because that Shanahan offense and you know, good receivers as well and a better offensive line. But I think that Justin Fields, when you combine and you weigh in the talent on that offense, I think that nudges him out over Trevor Lawrence, over Zach Wilson, even over Mac Jones in terms of surrounding cast, because Mac Jones does have Belichick, but I really am suspicious about the weapons that he's going to have to throw to once he gets under center.
Now, I do have a question about Justin Fields, because coming up to the draft and towards the end of his, you know, time at Ohio State, there was one recurring conversation in regards to Fields, and that was his processing ability. While I do believe a lot of it was overblown, I do think there is some merit to the conversation that he wasn't necessarily the fastest processor when he was in the pocket. Is that accurate, or where are we at with as far as processing goes for Fields?
Yeah, so I don't have any concerns about Justin Fields' intelligence. I feel like he's a sharp player who's able to pick up on things quickly, but I do think that there is some reason for concern. I just think, it's definitely overblown. I have to agree. And a big reason for that is just Ohio State's offense being different from just an NFL style offense. There's still a decent amount that a quarterback has to read. So many option routes that the receivers run, and determining, okay, I got to adjust myself here to hit this throw to this side of the field, and figuring that out on a dime like that. And he's also shown some flashes of being able to make those full field reads and going through progressions and hitting the check down and stuff like that. So I feel like, sure, there's a bit of concern with him because sometimes, he's a little bit late to, either get the ball off or to find an open man. And, that will have to improve in the NFL. But I have a lot of confidence that it will because, by all accounts, he's a hard worker. He's, a quick learner. And there have been reports from, that Matt Nagy said that he gave Justin Fields the playbook and showed him different concepts, and Fields was able to memorize it pretty quickly. And by the time rookie minicamp was getting started, he was correcting receivers on the routes that they're supposed to be running. So I'm not too concerned. I still would have taken him in the top 3, honestly. That's just me. I think he's closer to QB1 than he is QB4 or QB5, but that's just me. And, the NFL may seem to feel differently, or at least the teams that picked above the Bears seem to feel differently, but I think that there's a lot to be excited about with Justin Fields. Some concerns, sure, but I don't think they're anything too massive.
Well, and I feel like too, when you look at that board, before the Bears pick, there were not a lot of teams that were really looking for a quarterback. And to me, it wasn't surprising the 49ers took Trey Lance, and it's not because the Colin Cowherd thing. Trey Lance feels like a Shanahan quarterback to me. Everything about Trey Lance just feels Shanahan-y. I think Trevor Lawrence was going to go number 1 no matter what, just because of the Jag. It just there was too much hype. The Jaguars, had they not taken him, what would have looked dumb, at least until we saw the outcome. And I think Lawrence is also just really, really, really damn good.
Yeah.
I don't love the Jets pick, but it's the Jets. And then there's this weird gap. And I part of me feels, and I've always felt this way, I would rather be Justin Fields getting paid a decent chunk less, but being in a situation where I may be able to sit a year if the guy in front of me looks really good, and if not, and if I get to play, I have a pretty good supporting cast. Justin Fields won't need to process much. And this is, the Browns, it didn't work out, obviously, but that first year with Baker, I think they were trying to be in the same situation, which is ironic coming off the shit hole of a season they had before. But that is what they were trying to do. It is. From the Jarvis Landry move to the linemen they signed. And I feel the Bears are doing that, except they actually have that. Defense is not sticky year to year. We know that, whether it's analytics or just coaching, eye test, everybody says year to year, because so many things change on a defense, because interceptions and turnovers in general are just kind of random.
Yeah.
It's not sticky, but I think not being sticky only matters to a certain extent. The Bears still have Akeem Hicks is going to be back. I feel like you guys have a baseline level of defense where Justin Fields doesn't even need to go and be perfect. He can just be good. And if he really is digesting that whole playbook, which I remember Nagy said I think it may have been last year or the year before, he was not having Mitch throw the whole. Mitch had a very specific offense for him, and I don't know. I was pretty high on Justin Fields coming out, and I'm really high on your roster. So I think I'm looking at this with just biased glasses a little bit, but I don't know. You guys just seem to be in such a great situation. To me, for a guy like Justin Fields, it's a great situation to go to.
Yeah, I agree, and especially when you brought up the Zach Wilson situation, which Justin Fields has pieces around him. A guy like Zach Wilson might not, and I think that that's something that is going to play in Fields' favor. And I think going forward, and I'm sorry, do you mind saying the last part again, just to double check sorry about that.
No, yeah. I mean, I think Justin Fields is like, I don't know. It's a perfect situation. Like, the defense is good, right? We don't know how good it's going to be, but we know it's going to be good. The offense has a lot of skill position talent. Like, your running backs are really good. And like, I think what the kid from, I think, Oregon, Herbert, is that his name?
Yeah, Khalil Herbert.
Yeah.
He was Virginia Tech guy. We have
Virginia
an Oregon
Tech,
guy we drafted, but
yeah, Virginia Tech. Like, and Montgomery is really good. I don't know. If I'm Justin Fields, I'm ecstatic right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's a lot on this roster to like. I'll admit I'm a little bit concerned about their lack of investment at the cornerback position. I mean, they've drafted corners each of the last, 3 years, I want to say it is now in a row. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 3 years in a row now they've drafted a corner, but only one of them has been earlier than the 5th round. And they cut Kyle Fuller, and they brought in Desmond Trufant, who he's not bad, but he's dealt with injuries and he's getting older. So I don't know necessarily what expectations to have for him going into 2021. And Jalen Johnson's had a very good rookie year. I'm very happy with that. So I'm hopeful he'll be able to step into a bigger role because they don't really have too many proven guys on the roster. So they need someone to step up.
Yeah, I saw that the new defensive coordinator. I'm gonna totally forget his name. But Desai, right?
Sean Desai.
Yeah, I saw that he was planning on using Jalen Johnson, like almost kind of like how that kind of shadow role, right? Like how the Rams did Jalen Ramsey a little bit, which I mean Jalen Johnson had a really good year last year. Like, I don't know, as a Browns fan, I was like, damn, I would like that guy.
Yeah, coincidentally enough, and I know he got hurt. As a Bears fan, I was hoping for Grant Delpit in the 2nd round in 2020 over. I admittedly wasn't a massive fan of the Cole Kmet pick. I really liked both Delpit and Antoine Winfield Jr. I was hoping that they'd be able to get one of those guys to pair with Eddie Jackson. But yeah, I think Jalen Johnson, he did have a really good rookie year, and I think that shadow role, exactly like you mentioned, kind of in that Jalen Ramsey-esque role. I think that's a good fit for him. I think Chuck Pagano was a little too vanilla with how he called coverage. I think it was a little too bland, not disguising enough coverages, not letting guys truly run wild, and playing a little too passively, which I think Kyle Fuller played in that sort of system well, where you can be a little more passive and, let things come to you. But I think that still, even with Fuller, when Vic Fangio was defensive coordinator, and I think it'll be the case with Jalen Johnson because, Sean Desai is expected to be more similar to Fangio than Pagano. I think Jalen Johnson's going to be able to thrive in a new system that can hopefully, from a fan's perspective, be able to take advantage of his abilities in press coverage and, line him up closer to the line of scrimmage, because that's where I thought he thrived coming out of Utah, and that's where I thought he thrived as a rookie. So other than that, though, I agree. I think that there's a lot to like about this Bears roster, at least for 2021.
Is there anything specifically that is, I don't know, like if there's a downfall for the Bears in this season, it's going to be this? Like, what is their Achilles heel, essentially?
Yeah, so I will say outside of the secondary, which, I love Jalen Johnson. I think Eddie Jackson has potential to bounce back this year. Tayshaun Gibson's just a solid safety. He wasn't fantastic, but he's not bad. He's
one of my favorite Brown safeties of all time.
Yeah, he was really good with the Browns a couple of years ago, and put some stuff together with the Jags too. But he's not bad. He's not bad, but he's not as good as he was when he was in Cleveland. That's for sure. But outside of the secondary, since I know I've talked about them a little bit, at least in the short term, I'm a little worried about offensive tackle, just because you're putting Tevin Jenkins, a rookie, at left tackle, a position he doesn't have a ton of game reps in. He's played a couple games there. He started off at left tackle and practiced a lot there heading into 2020, but he had to switch because one of his teammates got hurt. You got that going on the left side, and on the right side, you got Jermaine Ifedi, who is basically running unopposed unless Larry Borum, their 5th-round pick, gets the chance to, really wow some people. But I think Ifedi is okay. He's a guy I wouldn't mind having as a swing tackle, as a guy who can play at guard and tackle, and that versatile, that 6th man on the offensive line, if you will. I have no qualms at all of having him in that role. But as a full-time starter, I still think he's the weak link along that offensive line. And time will tell, because he moved around guard to tackle a couple times last year, so maybe just couldn't get into a rhythm. But I'm a little bit worried about that just in the short term, because Ifedi hasn't been great in the NFL, and Tevin Jenkins, as much as I like him, as much as I love that pick, he's a rookie. I'm sure, especially being a left tackle, that there are going to be opportunities where he gets like a welcome to the NFL moment, and he gets beat off the snap or whatever it is that the case may be. I that's what I'm a little bit worried about, at least for 2021. But going forward, I have a lot of faith in Tevin Jenkins. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the other good thing in that situation is that welcome to the NFL moment probably comes when he goes up against Khalil Mack for the first time at camp.
Yeah, I mean, going up against Khalil Mack in camp, that's going to be an iron sharpens iron situation for sure. Like not a lot of rookie tackles coming out of this class are going to have as good of an opportunity as Tevin's going to have this offseason.
I mean, that kind of reminds me what Jedrick Wills had here last year in Cleveland, going up against Myles Garrett in practice. I mean, when you're going up against a guy that good, it's only going to help you.
Well, and they were saying, I was reading that, it's not a dissimilar situation, right? I know Wills was the 1st-round pick, but it's same idea, right? This guy played right tackle in college, moving over to left tackle, kind of an offensive line where you hope it's improved on last season, but not, you're not too sure. And all of a sudden in camp, this guy is going up against one of the best rushers in the game. And then you just hope, come season, that it works out. I don't know. I really like Tevin Jenkins. I don't follow the draft closely enough to know, when everybody's going to get picked. All I know is the Browns got JOK, and I'm ecstatic about that. But, I thought Tevin Jenkins was – I thought he was going to be a 1st-round pick, just from, the little I had watched. He was really impressive to me.
Yeah, and I've been on record, Tevin Jenkins was my top choice at 20, and I said it then, I'll say it now. I'm sure I'll say it a bunch of other times leading up to the draft here. So, I mean, not the draft, the season, jeez. But, yeah, being a draft guy, my head's just always stuck in draft mode. I forget there's an actual season going on. But
we're Browns fans, so you're good.
we know exactly how you feel.
But yeah, I was surprised that Tevin Jenkins fell into the 2nd round, honestly. And looking back on it, I know there are some concerns, injury-wise, with him, but I honestly think that those were a bit more exaggerated than they'll end up being. In the long run, it's just a matter of, is he going to come back from this minor? I think it was a hip injury or something. And by all accounts, he's practicing. He's at full speed and everything. So I'm hoping that that's going to, work out for sure. And I might just say JOK was a really good pick for the Browns in the 2nd round. I was actually a really big fan of what you guys did in the draft this year, especially Greg Newsome in the 1st round. I'm a really big fan of his. I think that his tape, sure, there are injury concerns with him, but his tape, it's legit. And I just had so much fun watching him.
It's funny what you said about Tevin Jenkins, that you wanted him at 20, because I wanted JOK at 22 for the Browns. So it's a very similar situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I feel too, with Newsome, and this is something James and I have talked about, this dude was a great zone corner in college, and he's going to come in the NFL, and all this Browns defense does is zone coverage. So he's going to run a shitload of zone, and it's kind of like these picks, and I think even the Mitch pick for you guys when you guys took him, I got the logic behind that pick. I think the process was good. It just ended up with the stinker kind of a quarterback, but like. I liked it. I like what you guys have done in the draft, and I feel like it's kind of the same thing, right? It sucks to draft a guy based on scheme, but the reality is NFL coaches are signed to fairly long contracts, and even as a Browns fan, like it's hard to fire a coach after 1 or 2 years, so you draft guys that fit those schemes, and I think you guys have done a really good job of that. Like Fields fits what I think Nagy wants that offense to look like. Like when I think like kind of that Andy Reid tree, Fields fits that to me. Tevin Jenkins fits that to me. And I just think that's smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I'm honestly looking forward to is Tevin Jenkins in that blocking scheme, because once they made the move to Juan Castillo last offseason, there was a notable shift in mentality, and sure, the play still wasn't fantastic in 2020, but the overall mentality wasn't okay. We're going to get in the way and just kind of stop you from getting in the backfield. It's no, we're going to go full speed ahead. We're going to drive you into the dirt, and I think that's Tevin Jenkins to a T. I think he's really going to benefit. I'm expecting a lot more outside zone in the run game, and getting Tevin Jenkins that chance to take advantage of that straight line speed and his big frame and just build up momentum and then drive guys into the dirt. That's what I'm really looking forward to. And as to Justin Fields in the scheme, I absolutely agree. I think that he's gonna project as a good fit in that scheme going forward. And I think that Matt Nagy hasn't had as much of a chance to utilize nearly as much of the playbook as he's wanted to. So I'm going to be interested in seeing if Justin Fields is able to unlock not only the potential of, guys like Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, giving Allen Robinson some more national attention that he arguably hasn't gotten enough of for, how good he is. But, also for Matt Nagy, I'm hoping that as a Bears fan, Justin Fields is going to be able to, put that all together and elevate Nagy as well as the players around him.
And I'm really hoping for you guys over there in Chicago that you guys finally, get a long-term situation at quarterback, because me and Jordan talked about it previously. The Bears situation at quarterback franchise, like historical wise, has not been great over the past 40 years or so. So getting a long-term answer to that position for the Bears would be it would answer, I think, a lot of problems for them. But additionally, for Ohio State fans, it finally ends the conversation about Ohio State quarterbacks not succeeding in the NFL, because they really haven't. Just like how outside of Carson Palmer, USC quarterbacks haven't been successful either.
Yeah, and I try my best to keep level-headed and say, okay, you scout the player, not the helmet. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, Patrick Mahomes, before he started balling out in the NFL, who is the best Texas Tech quarterback in the NFL? And the same with Deshaun Watson and Clemson. Clemson didn't have a ton of success with NFL quarterbacks. So I try and keep that in mind, that a lot of it is just up to the player. But I from an Ohio State fan's perspective, I can absolutely see getting annoyed with that. I have a friend who I've known since fourth grade, who's an Ohio State fan. And he and I talk every once in a while, and I already know, he is sick of the whole narrative Ohio State quarterbacks can't do well in the NFL, and quite frankly, I'm kind of sick of it too, because, again, I feel like it comes a lot to, the player more so than the school that they come from, but I'm hoping for, Bears perspective and, for Ohio State fans, that Justin Fields is able to succeed and, kind of disprove the narrative that a Bears quarterback can't succeed and an Ohio State quarterback can't succeed.
Well, to be fair, until one actually does succeed, for either, especially Ohio State, the narrative's still going to be there.
Right. Yeah. And like, I also feel like I don't know. Urban Meyer like notoriously does not love like a quarterback-driven offense.
But it even dates back to before him, though.
Yeah, no, I know, but not like Jim Tressel did. I can't remember the last time. I guess Dwayne Haskins was another one that I was really high on Haskins, and I think Haskins didn't work out in the NFL for reasons that go beyond like his abilities as a quarterback. But like Haskins and Fields to me, like at least like I've been watching Ohio State off and on since like '98 or so. I can't remember two quarterbacks like that, like back to back too. But like, I mean, Troy Smith was what, like a 6th-round pick, like, and he was pretty good. And like Terrell Pryor ended up not being a quarterback. Like I don't know. I don't remember having guys like Justin Fields. Like Fields is incredible.
Yeah, and there wasn't necessarily like a run like USC had of, like Mark Sanchez and Matt Barkley and all those guys that they had that were just not very good. Sam Darnold.
Right.
Right. So they didn't have like a run of a whole bunch of highly drafted or at least semi-highly drafted quarterbacks. That's been all over the place, across the board.
Right.
But after our little small detour of draft talk, let's hop around the NFC North for a minute. So I know we touched on the Packers first, but earlier, what do you think is going to happen with the Packers this year?
Man, I mean,
there's such a wide level of variance. I know it's not necessarily a fair question for you because the whole Aaron Rodgers thing can completely swing things one way or the other, but I'm going to do it to you anyways. How do you think the Packers are going to
do? Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. But yeah, my gut says that Aaron Rodgers is going to stay with the Packers for at least another year. I think next year we might see something different. I think that 2022, at least in my opinion, my gut says that Jordan Love's going to be the starter for the Packers next year. Mm-hmm. But 2021, I think they're going to go with Rodgers one more time, simply because I know the opt-out deadline already passed. So, that's already indicating that Rodgers isn't planning on, sitting out unless he pulls something, which, truth be told, I'm not as up to date on the CBA and how that stuff all works as much as I'd like to be. Mm-hmm. But my general assumption is that the Packers are going to roll with Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to trade him. Rodgers is going to play. And then after that, they're going to trade him. And then I don't know. I know there have been little rumblings about Davante Adams having some displeasure. And if Rodgers goes, I think Davante Adams goes. I don't think Adams is going to want to stick around for, an unproven quarterback like Jordan Love. And, regardless of what Love's physical talent is, I think that Adams is, okay, I'm in the prime of my career. I'm one of, if not the best receivers in the league right now. I want to chase a title. I want to take advantage of my prime, and I want to win something. So that's just my gut feeling. I think next year is the year they tear it all down, but 2021, I think they run it back. I think they win the NFC North again. Do they win the NFC? I don't think so. I could see another NFC Championship appearance where they lose. But ultimately, I think that where they're at right now, they're close. I don't know if they're going to be on par with, say the Rams. We'll see what happens, now that they have Matthew Stafford. Buccaneers are returning all their starters. I think 49ers coming back. All their guys are going to be healthy. I think they'll still make some noise. And, there are a handful of teams that could also break out. So it's going to be tough in the NFC this year. I think the Packers will still win the division, but I think that this will be the last year of the Aaron Rodgers era. That's my gut feeling, though.
I also just, I know I'm not part of Team PFF here. I watch, I love kind of this Shanahan scheme. My hobby when the Browns aren't playing is watching other teams that play the Shanahan scheme. And I just LaFleur is at the bottom of my list for I know that everybody's oh, well, if you look at the Packers offense, they were incredible. And beyond, well, yeah, they have probably the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the NFL, maybe in the NFL in the past decade, to be honest with you. But I don't think LaFleur is that much genius of an offensive coach, at least compared to like Arthur Smith, obviously Shanahan, McVay, Stefanski. Like, there are guys that just do this better. And I don't like, I kind of think last year was a little lucky. Not entirely, like, they had a ton of talent. But I don't know, man. Like, they're going to be a playoff team if they have Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know how much better. I feel like LaFleur may be a handicap more than a positive boost.
I'll keep it short. I was just going to say that from an outside perspective, I think Matt LaFleur is a solid coach. I don't think he's elite. I don't think he's in that upper echelon of, coaches. And I think that the success of the Packers is more so because of their quarterback play and the talent that they have rather than him specifically. But I think LaFleur's solid, if unspectacular. And I think once Aaron Rodgers leaves, I don't think they're going to blow it all up and get a new head coach, because odds are they're probably not going to get a coach who's as good as LaFleur if Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Let's be honest. I think that no Rodgers really takes away a lot of the shine of that job. So I think they'll keep LaFleur around. I think that'll be, a pretty big test for him, seeing, okay, has he been developing Jordan Love this whole time? Is he able to work around, with Jordan Love's strengths and weaknesses and elevate him? And again, I have no way of knowing exactly when that's going to be, exactly what year Jordan Love's going to take over. But that's just my gut feeling, from an outside perspective. I think LaFleur's solid, but he's not bad, but he's not necessarily great. That's just my view of him, though.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
What I was going to say is one of Jordan's favorite words here is variance. And I think the level of variance between a Packers team with Aaron Rodgers and one without Aaron Rodgers is massive. And I also believe that of the coaches that deploy this offensive system up to this point, that LaFleur's had, head and shoulders above everyone else, the best quarterback. Like, it's not even close. Because you're looking at the guys like Tannehill, Baker, Garoppolo, Goff. Then you throw Aaron Rodgers in that conversation. It's one of these things is not like the other, and one's an elite quarterback, and everyone else is just kind of in that average group. So I think that matters quite a bit too.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the quarterback situation, at least for this year, in the NFC North, it's Green Bay, and then there's a huge drop off in everyone else. Don't get me wrong. I think Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. I don't think he's great. I think he's decent. He might get too much hate from other NFC North teams, maybe too much praise from Vikings fans, but I think he's a solid, average, slightly above average quarterback, and that's solid. But Aaron Rodgers is on such another level from anyone else in that division at the quarterback position, so I think that's huge, and that's another reason I think if the Packers are choosing to keep Aaron Rodgers around and Rodgers plays, then they're definitely my vote to win the NFC North. I think they'll be able to come away with it in a pretty big margin from first to second place.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers is just even like he won the MVP last year for a reason. Like, he's still he's not the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's second or third. I just like I don't know. I think you're right. If Rodgers plays, that team's gonna win it, win the division. If Rodgers does, if it's Jordan Love, like, I'm not high on the Vikings at all, unfortunately, because I have like friends that are really big Vikings fans, but I don't see them. I mean, I don't know what. Maybe you can answer this. I don't know what the hell is going on in Detroit. Like I do not understand that team at all. Like, my gut inclination was this is a team trying to rebuild, and Dan Campbell is like this guy that's gonna like say like, we're not gonna wipe your butts and all this other nonsense that leaves his mouth. But like, it's going to be a great guys to do this rebuild under this coach that wants tough. everything. But like, then they're making moves that you're kind of like, are they actually trying to win? So I don't understand what the Lions are doing. The Vikings to me are the same team they were last year. Obviously few kind of additions, but just like good enough offensive skill positions and quarterback, great running back, offensive line maybe better this year, but a lot of question marks, and then Zimmer in the defense is always going to be good. But like they're solid to me. I think Kirk Cousins benefited a lot from Kevin Stefanski because I looked up every stat. Like, name your stat. Kirk Cousins was worse than everyone last year than he was the year before. And I know he didn't have Diggs, but I think Cousins is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. He's like Joe Flacco was with the Ravens for us. He's good. Nothing more. He's good. I don't know. Like, I feel like if Rodgers isn't there, though, you guys have a shot. Like, Bears have a shot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that there's a lot to like there with what the Bears have, at least compared to the Vikings. I think that, Kirk Cousins probably going to put together a better season this year than, say, Justin Fields would if he were to take over. But, I look at the rest of that division. If Rodgers isn't on the Packers and, things fall apart there, I honestly think the Bears are the next team up. Just because, look, I think the Vikings have a solid roster. I think they've done a pretty good job with accumulating draft picks. And they've made some solid moves there. I just don't know how high their ceiling is with Kirk Cousins. And I don't know if their defense is, up to par with, say the Bears, the Packers in that division. So that's just my gut. If Rodgers isn't there, and assuming Jordan Love doesn't immediately pick up where Aaron Rodgers left off, I think the Bears would be the favorite. My assumption is they'd be the worst division winner out of the 4 NFC divisions, because I think the NFC East will be a bit better this coming year, which, not a high bar, but that's just, where I think if guys are healthy. But yeah, I think that the Bears are slightly going to have the upper hand for me over the Vikings. I just think that they have some solid pieces in place. I don't know if there's as much of a risk reward factor as there is with the Bears, where you've got a young quarterback who's got a lot of potential to work with. Yeah, that's just me. And the Vikings are a solid team, though. I think they'll compete for a wild card spot, but in the end, I don't know if they have what it takes to consistently deliver down the stretch.
And you're taking the Lions?
The Lions, man. I don't know. Like I'll say this. Penei Sewell was a really good pick for Detroit. I'm dreading that pick as a Bears fan for years to come, because he's the highest graded offensive tackle that I've had on my draft board since I've started scouting. So I'm a really big fan of Penei Sewell, and I think that he's got plug and play potential day one, very good starter. I can see a Pro Bowl in, the pretty near future for him, just going off of what I saw with his tape at Oregon. But yeah, with the Lions, there's just a lot of pieces missing there. Good foundational draft for what the Lions want to do, fighting in the trenches. I think their offensive line is going to be pretty solid this year. I think they have some pieces on the defensive line that are intriguing to me. I like the 2 defensive tackles they drafted, Levi and Muzurike and Aleem McNeil. But I just feel like there's too much missing. I think that they're not going to have a very good passing game. TJ Hawkinson's a stud, but outside of that, you're not looking at too many starter caliber players at the wide receiver position. And the run game could be solid. I think DeAndre Swift can be a good starter, and he can take a step up in year 2. But, man, I just don't see that high of a ceiling for that offense when, Jared Goff's your quarterback. He's not garbage, but I don't necessarily think he's all that good either. And your top receivers you're throwing to are like Tyrell Williams, Quintez Cephas, Brashad Perriman. That's not necessarily an elite group of guys there. So, I just think there are too many pieces missing for them to do any damage. I think that they'll be picking, my gut says, in the top 5 of the 2022 draft, and they'll be looking for a Goff replacement, whether that be Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, Malik Willis. I can go on and on, but regardless, I think they'll be in the quarterback hunt come next year's draft.
Yeah, that's very fair. And would you say all the people that have been wanting all the Lions fans? Let me correct that. All the Lions fans that have been wanting to move on from Matt Stafford for the past 8 to 10 years are going to be eating some crow after about week 4 of this season.
Yeah, I think so. I think that say what you want about Matthew Stafford, and he doesn't have any playoff wins or whatnot, but he's a talented quarterback, and I think that. Just because of the teams he's been around, he might end up being the most underrated quarterback, at least of the 2010s decade, if not the 21st century. But I think that Lions fans, at least in the short term, are going to be, they're going to be eating their words. They're going to be in a good spot though, because they were able to get 2 first-rounders out of that. I think that'll help them with this rebuild they're going through. But in the short term, I'm sorry, Lions fans, it's probably not going to be pretty.
Yeah, James and I, halfway through the season when Baker had, yet to have, more than 2 good games under Stefanski and just looked bad. The rest of the offense looked great, and Baker just looked bad. I think we had, a whole podcast where the plan was not to do this, and we ended up just talking about, how great it would be to have Matt Stafford in this offense. And, I think we'll see the very similar thing this year in L.A. I think Stafford's going to be really good under McVay. I hope he is. I hope for Stafford he is. But yeah, that Lions team is just. I read Jared Goff is having a terrible camp or terrible OTAs, with connecting with Perriman and stuff. So yeah, I'm not feeling good there.
Yeah, I think that from a Rams perspective, I'm really excited to see what Stafford can do with that offense with McVay calling the shots and. The talented weapons. You got Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. I know they got Tutu Atwell they drafted, signed Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, the whole deal. They've got some talented weapons, a really smart coach, and a good overall roster. I always thought that, sure, the Rams have some flaws on their roster, but the quarterback position I was, really worried about for them going forward. And now I think that they got now that they have Matthew Stafford, now that they have some pieces on defense now to work with, I think that that's a Super Bowl contender right there in LA.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I got one more thing for you. I thought of it, kind of a fun little game here. I'm going to put you in the position of Andrew Berry, of the GM of the Cleveland Browns. I want you to rank these 3 players in priority for contract extensions. Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward.
Oh, man. Okay.
Because I want an outsider's perspective. There's tons of discussions about this in Cleveland, and if you don't say the right answer, everybody gets mad, and you will come at your house with pitchforks. So I want to know what your perspective is from not being in Cleveland.
Let's see. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty difficult. I think that I personally really like Denzel Ward. I don't know exactly where Browns fans stand on him, but I like him a lot. I think that when he gets I know he just missed a handful of games with due to injury and all that, but I think that there's a lot to like with him. So I'd say Denzel Ward number 1. That's just me because
we agree.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a lot of weight off my shoulders. And then number 2, I've obviously quarterback is a much more valuable position than running back. But again, I don't know how sold I am on Baker Mayfield just yet, simply because I think from an outsider's perspective, Baker Mayfield is a solid quarterback. He's not bad. He's definitely better than a lot of what the Browns have had in recent years. But, I'll still go Baker 2 and then Chubb 3. It's close though, and the reason that I say that is because I'm a little bit worried about handing over a crap ton of money to a quarterback who hasn't proven to be much more than average, because once you're tying a ton of money to an average quarterback, it can be tougher to build a team around them. But just that, I think that Chubb is a really good running back, but statistically the running back position tends to wear out a little bit quicker than other offensive positions, and the value might not be as big as other offensive positions. And so I'm going to go Baker 2, Chubb 3. That's just my opinion on it. And I'm excited to see what the Browns can do this year, because I really like that roster you guys have in place. And I like Baker. I really do. I think that he has some potential still to tap into, and I wouldn't be shocked if, they're running it back. They're winning the AFC North, and they're, taking a deep run into the playoffs. But I don't know. That's just where I'm at on that. If you guys, feel free to let me know, because I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think, being able to, watch them more often than I can.
Yeah, I would say Ward 1, Chubb 2, Baker 3. I think I am where you are on Baker. I like Baker. The problem for me is you have quarterbacks that are solid, like Kirk Cousins, that are solid because they don't have highs. Kirk Cousins has highs and lows, but generally speaking, you know what you're getting when Kirk Cousins plays, and it's not spectacular. It's good.
Yeah.
It's fine. The problem with Baker is he has games where you are you want to slam your head against the wall. It's what is this guy doing? And then he has games where he looks like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. But it's so varied, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And to me, it depends, right? I think for me, it's if Baker comes in this year and obviously plays well, just consistently well, I'd put him 2, Chubb 3. If they could get Chubb on a Derrick Henry type deal, I think you have to do it. And is a big fan of analytics and less of PFF, but of analytics. I get it. I get Chubb, a running back just doesn't have as much value. But if your quarterback isn't good and you're in this offense, we've seen it. You need to be able to run the ball. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm torn. I guess I'm ideally Ward 1, Baker 2, Chubb 3. I think I may end up actually Ward 1, Chubb 2, Baker 3.
And I'm at Ward, Chubb, then Baker, and it's only because I know Chubb's performance outside of this offense is still excellent. Baker's hasn't been. So I'm looking at the player, his whole body of work, not just what he did for me lately. And it's just Baker for me is still too inconsistent. He still makes some dumb moves and some dumb plays during a game, but it seems like Stefanski reined him in a little bit, that they can make it work. But I think at the end of the day, the question is it Baker making these plays, or Stefanski guiding him into these plays where he has some of, if not the best group of skilled position players in the league? So that's where I'm at.
One thing I'll say on Ward too, and Jacob, I hope this isn't salt in the wound with the Kyle Fuller thing, but I think cornerbacks are just such an underpaid position for what they contribute, that to be able to get a guy like Ward for that money, whatever the money's going to be, for what it is, I just think it's really valuable. Ward, when he's healthy, is a shut down that side of the field type guy. So for me, it's Ward 1, just because of the financial value you're going to get for a guy like Ward. And then there's kind of a gap, and then it's probably Chubb 2, Baker 3 right now, but I reserve the right to move Baker all the way up to 1, depending on how he does this season.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I I can definitely see where you guys are coming from with that, and I think that in it as of right now, if Baker has another season like the one he had last year, then I probably would move Chubb to 2. If you can get Chubb for like 13 and a half, 14 million maybe, I think that's the sweet spot for him. If he gets in like McCaffrey territory, then at that point I think you're starting to say, whoa, okay, is he worth this much?
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you guys do agree that, just generally where we're at with Baker. Like, I like him. I don't know if I like him enough to give him a long-term massive extension. Like, I don't know what the Browns will do. I'm not tied in enough to, be able to predict that, but I know it's definitely a debate worth having for sure.
Well, it seems like they're not necessarily in a rush to get a deal signed before the season. At least that's what a lot of the reporting has been. But if it were up to the fans and certain people that cover the team, they would have had the deal done like as soon as the season was over. But it seems like they're not necessarily in a rush to sign some big mega deal. But I'm okay with that, and it seems like at least everyone should be okay with that. Considering what we know about Baker and what we know about quarterbacks similar to him who has signed long-term mega extensions and have since moved this past offseason.
Yep. Jared Goff.
Carson Wentz. Yeah, those two. But I think that's going to do it for us on this episode here. The first of the joint podcast between This Is Believeland and Real Browns Fans. You can find the podcast available on both websites in addition to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and my YouTube channel. Thanks for listening. Jacob, you want to go ahead and plug your stuff again?
Yeah, absolutely. So y'all can find me on Twitter at Jacob Infante 24. That's Jacob Infante 24. You can find my Bears work over at Windy City Gridiron, and I do NFL draft stuff over at the Draft Wire as well.
Remember to go check all of that stuff out. Jacob does great work.
Thank you so much, Jacob. And this was a great episode, so I really appreciate it. It's going to be a great one to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thanks both of you for having me on. And James, it was nice to talk to you again. And Jordan, it was a pleasure getting to chat with you as well. So, thank you to the both of you for having me on. I had a blast, that's for sure.